Today I'm going to do the video on the Wilson trailer because I have a fairly new one sitting in the yard. It's basically brand new and it is set up for doing hogs, has all the boards in and the third deck. So I'll show you that and I'll go around and tell you why they are my favorite trailer. And some of this is going to be based in the context of the last video showing why certain features are better. Now I have pulled probably a couple dozen of these trailers, and I know there's a lot of different specs you can get. I won't go over much of that, but I definitely have my preference in how I would like one spec'd. This one is a 2023 model. First off, this is what I was talking about. This system for getting into the board box is fairly straightforward. It's kind of like the back doors on a van trailer. It's even better than the EB. The EB, this would be steel. It starts getting rusty and tight. This all aluminum setup is great. And then these vents are much easier to use. You just go like that and it opens them top and bottom. I'm not a big fan of the little hole latches. I prefer the big ones. For this, they're okay. But for the doors, once the hinges start wearing, they have to be exact for these to automatically latch. I guess the old board's falling down there. And then another feature that this trailer has, if I pull this board off, this little door here, when you have a 3-deck trailer, you open that, pull these two latches here, and that opens up your nose to run your pigs across the deck without having to crawl across them. And this feature should be just across the board. If it has a 3rd deck on the trailer, it should have that feature automatically. You shouldn't have to spec that special. This is just for running states, so we can put the seal on here just as an extra safety. This trailer is a little bit different because it has a long slider for your deck. You can put the entire deck up one at a time instead of having to run them as doubles. So you can see it has actually 2 doors there. You could open both up if you wanted to run hogs across. I obviously would just do the one. Also, you can tell the trailer's new because it still has these washers in. I never take these doors off. There's no reason to. As far as I'm concerned, if it's windy, hook a bungee strap in. Don't take the doors off and lose those washers. You just cause stuff to wear out quicker. I think that's kind of a rookie mistake. Now, one thing where the Wilson board design blows everyone out of the water is being able to drop this board in like that. Now you might wonder why. First of all, the way Wilson wants you to run your belly panels is actually up like this in that little, up in that holder. But what happens is you actually get cold air that comes up in behind the board and you blow snow in behind it. So when you drop these down, you actually have a better seal across the bottom to keep snow out. And then when you drop your board like that, you open up a vent at the top, and that is extremely important because when it's down, you know, minus 20, minus 30, even if it's minus 40 and you park somewhere, say you're going in for lunch, you will drop a couple just like that to keep the roof cool. And the reason why that's so important is when it is really cold, you build up a lot of condensation on the ceiling of the trailer, and what that ends up doing is if you get the inside of that trailer hot, which as soon as you stop moving, the temperature goes up quite a bit, and that will cause the condensation on the roof to melt and drop on the pigs. So when it's cold weather, you pretty much got to have a Wilson. I do prefer the little door here, not the great big one. one complaint guys have is that panel up there is hard to get out. It makes it a lot easier if the bottom edge of that panel is cut on a slight angle. That way you can get one corner over the lip and then the other one, and you can do it one-handed a lot easier. That's another perk that these boards have over the EB, is they're very easy to work with one hand. The EB has a hole in each corner, and also they fit tighter in the rail, which gives no advantage because they pop out as easy as a Wilson board. So they're tight, finicky to get in. You have to use two hands to do everything, whereas on a Wilson, the boards are loose, but not too loose, and it's very easy to do it all with one hand. This back door design is optional with the two rollers at the bottom. It does roll up a little bit nicer than with the single. And then for this little drain or scrape out door, whatever you want to call it, these are by far the best design in the industry. Not only are they a lot more robust than anyone else, you have this single latch here. These do get corrosion in the back, and then it makes it a little bit harder to latch. If there was something that could be improved on the design, I would say this. But part of the reason it's so nice is it's kind of like a plug, and it sits farther in the inside so you don't trap as much stuff back here like you would on an EB. And also the EB just has two really small latches that are essentially useless. This is great. The only thing is it's preferable to spec with the latch on this side, not that side, because when you get the doghouse one, you can still reach it from standing on the back ledge of the trailer. Whereas if it's on the far side, it's a lot more of a pain. Someone ripped that step off. That's kind of dim. Actually, you wonder how in the world they managed to do that. So hopefully it's not too dark in here. Now these roll-up doors, they have a roller in here, not a rubber puck like the Merit. And then they kind of overlap, joint here and here. They're a good design. They're loose so they don't freeze as bad. The EB doors are awful for freezing. They're a little bit over-engineered, and when I do the EB, I'll talk about those as well. Essentially, we were delivering hogs one morning, and it was minus 45 with a minus 50 wind chill. So you can imagine the amount of frost that was in everything. The runners up at the top were literally just like a bar of frost. There wasn't even a slot in them anymore. And we got our doors up. These doors don't freeze as solid because they've got a lot more play in them pretty easily, but then, well, I mean, it might have taken 5-10 minutes each, but then there was a guy there with an EB, and the way their design is, they have a rod that is very tightly machined and everything. There's no play in those doors at all. So to get that guy's up was a three-man job. This one has a fold-up ramp. I'm not a fan of the fold-up ramps personally. I would rather just have a regular one for a couple reasons. One being airflow. It's already bad enough on this side with the Crowder gate. I know the holes are lined up, but it's not as good as if it was out of there. And then when you add the ramp to it, I think that blocks a lot more airflow as well. The other one being, we all know that the cattle like it when the ramp has bedding on it, or even with hogs, and then you go flip the ramp against the wall, you lose all that bedding. So for feeder pigs and cattle, I see that as a negative. For heat, I see it as a negative. And then the other thing is if you have, 8 inches of straw on the floor, you have to fork a lot more of that out of the way to get this thing down. If you don't, it won't actually sit on the floor, and it'll be sprung, and when they do go down, it'll put a lot of tension on it. So I don't really like that. Again, we have this setup, which allows you to open the trap door before you open the gate, which is a lot safer for cattle. This is really nice, and even for hogs, I don't mind the narrower gate. They seem to load pretty well. Once you know what you're doing with hogs, things just move along pretty easily. It's very rare that I ever have any trouble moving hogs. So this trailer does have a deep back end. So this transition from back end to belly is a lot more shallow. I really like that feature. I can almost stand up under the doghouse. And then if you can see it, this ramp ends right at the edge of the belly instead of protruding into it, which makes scraping out a lot easier because you don't have that hump for everything to freeze in around. And then this is what a third deck is. It's just these planks that run across the belly. That way we can actually get up to the over 100,000 pounds that we can legally run up here. So let's talk about floor ribbing. We talked about how the Merit has 6. Some guys don't like that because they can't fit a shovel in, but that's a non-issue with the scraper. EB and Wilson are a 5 rib. One feature on this trailer that is really nice is deleting the ribs in line with the scrapeout door. Makes life a lot easier there. One thing that I wish would be redesigned is this convertible ramp or door. So if you want to open this just as a door, I never really use it as a ramp. So then you're down here, and this fills up with straw. That pin gets buried in all the bedding, and it's a little bit of a trick to get that open sometimes. It's a very minor complaint. So you can open it this way to load your doghouse, or you can flip up this conversion pin here and drop it down like this if you're moving wee little things. So the problem we run into here is the pins wear out very quickly. They really don't take this very long, so they really start getting loose after a year or two. And so this pin, so what'll end up happening is, in order for that pin, you can see how it already sits right at the bottom of the slot. For these pins to latch, every time you close, you have to pick up on this like that. That is a big Wilson weakness. That also is the same thing that happens with the nose. This nose gate is an identical design, just on a longer scale. So these start to wear. So it's like that. So then you have to fight it to get it into position. So on your typical EV trailer, the ramp up to the nose is over here, and the ramp down, of course, your counterbalance is here. You can spec them with a ramp in the counterbalance, and the way that ramp is set up is a lot better than this one. So even though these are by far my favorite trailers, and they have some features that I couldn't live without, that conversion pin setup can be done better, and EV proved that. Now this is a fairly wide counterbalance compared to other brands, or at least the way that these are typically spec'd. Then your nose deck. On this one it has the double rail like I was wishing the Merit would have, and it also comes all the way back to the edge of the counterbalance, so you've got room to play with, and then little flip down latches on the sides. When you're done putting the deck away, I have no complaints about this setup, unless you're going to a crank nose deck, but Wilson has absolutely nailed the concept of the nose deck. I don't know what EB's even thinking with the way they have their setup. I'll show you that one. It's by far the worst. On these you can store your bedding up on the nose deck while it's up, whereas an EB just converts all of them into a beam that sits in the middle. That's not only really frustrating to do, it's completely useless as far as storing bedding, and without that there really is nowhere else to do it. So if you're doing a couple loads of fats and then you want to go to a sale and want to rebed, well, you're out of luck with the EB. I'd say one other really small thing that could be improved is when they put these, it's a typical panel slider, has the notch cut out here, and then it ends here, so you can put the panel against it and slide it up. But where they join the nose to belly and belly to back end, they rivet these on, and it does not, and they should not be flush cut like that. There should be an extension like on this side where you can put the board in and then slide it up, because these do tend to wreck boards. I'm sure I have more nuanced thoughts than that on these Wilsons, but that's all I can think of offhand. These dolly legs are not quite as nice as the EB just because the EB has offset holes on the actual dolly leg itself, so you can split half distances between holes instead of just the regular ones like this. But on the whole, these are very good. You just have to make sure that this spring is hooked in the right spot on the pin, or else they can come out. I remember one night going through Montreal, I all of a sudden heard a little rattle, pulled over, got out, and my dolly was sitting on the ground. Guys have actually bent the legs right backwards, but I caught it, and I hooked the vice grips in the back end through the two of the holes, and ran all the way home like that. It worked fine. Just a little something to look out for. The only real weak spot on these trailers is, like I said, those conversion pins wear out. That should be a better design, as well as the nose floors. If you don't spec the heavy nose floor, they will wear out a little bit quickly. If I was speccing a trailer like this, I wouldn't change much other than I would have a pull-out ramp and a rear axle lift. Beyond that, I can't think of anything I would change. I personally would say that if you're looking for a trailer that's going to treat you right and be able to do any job you need it to do, especially in cold weather, by far and away you're the best off with a Wilson. I'm not getting paid to say that. That's just what 7 years of doing this stuff has taught me. So, thanks for watching.